From this it is shown that God acts in creatures not by the necessity of nature, but by the choice of the will. For the virtue of every agent is determined by the necessity of nature to a single effect. And from this it is that all natural things always happen in the same way, unless there is an obstacle, but not voluntarily. But divine virtue is not directed to one effect only, as was shown above. Therefore God does not act by the necessity of nature, but by will. Still, whatever does not imply a contradiction is subject to divine power, as has been shown. But there are not many things in created things which, even if they were, would not involve a contradiction, as is especially evident in regard to the number, sizes, and distances of the stars and other bodies, in which, if the order of things were otherwise, the contradiction would not be involved. Many things, therefore, are subject to divine power, which are not found in the natural world. But whoever does some things of what he can do and does not do others, acts by the choice of the will, and not by the necessity of nature. Therefore God does not act by the necessity of nature, but by will. Again, each agent acts in this way according to what has become likeness in him, for every agent acts according to his own likeness. Now everything that is in the other is in it according to the manner of that in which it is. Since therefore God is intelligent through his essence, as has been proved above, it is necessary that the similitude of his effect must be in him in an intelligible manner. Therefore he acts by understanding, but the understanding does not produce any effect except through the medium of the will, the object of which is the good understanding, which moves the agent as an end. Therefore God acts by will, not by the necessity of nature. Further, according to the Philosopher in Metaphysics 9, there is a twofold action, one which remains in the agent and is its perfection, as in seeing, another which passes into externals and is the perfection of the fact, as burning in fire. Now the divine action cannot be of the kind of those actions which are not in the agent, since its own action is its own substance, as was shown above. It must therefore be of the kind of those actions which are in the agent and are, as it were, his perfection. But there are none of this kind except the actions of the knowing and desiring. Therefore God works by knowing and willing, not therefore by the necessity of nature, but by the choice of the will. Still, that God acts for the sake of an end may be evident from this, that the universe is not by chance, but is directed to some good, as is clear from the Philosopher in the 11th of Metaphysics. But first of all, he who acts for the sake of an end must be an actor through the understanding and the will. For those who lack the understanding act for the sake of the end, as if they were directed to the end by another. This is evident in the artifices, for the movement of the arrow is to a determined mark from the direction of the archer. But it must be the same in the natural world. For in order for something to be ordered directly to its due end, knowledge of the end itself is required, and of that which is to the end, and of the due proportion between the two, which is only of the intelligent. Therefore, since God is the first agent, he does not act through the necessity of nature, but through the understanding and the will. In addition, that which acts by itself is prior to that which acts by another, for everything that is by another must be reduced to that which is by itself, lest it proceed ad infinitum. But he who is not the master of his own action does not act by himself, for he acts as if he were acting by another, not as if he were acting himself. It is therefore necessary for the first agent to act in such a way that he is the master of his own act. Now no one is the master of his own act except through the will. It is therefore necessary for God, who is the first agent, to act by will, not by the necessity of nature. Still, the first action is due to the first agent, just as the first movement is due to the first mover. But naturally the action of the will is prior to the action of nature. For naturally that which is more perfect is first, although in one certain time it is later. Now the action of the agent by the will is more perfect. From this it is clear that those things are more perfect among us which act by the will than those by the necessity of nature. Therefore to God, who is the first agent, is due the action which is by the will. Further, from this it also appears that where both actions are combined, the virtue which acts by the will is superior to that which acts by nature and uses them as an instrument. For in man the intellect which acts by the will is superior to the vegetable soul which acts by the necessity of nature. But divine virtue is supreme in all beings, therefore she acts in all things by the will, not by the necessity of nature. Again, the will has for its object good according to the reason of good, but nature does not reach to the common reason of good, but to this good which is its perfection. Since then, every agent acts according to what he aims at good, because the end moves the agent. It is necessary that the agent by will be compared to the agent by the necessity of nature, as the universal agent to the particular agent. Now the particular agent relates to the universal agent as posterior to it, and as its instrument. Therefore it is necessary that the first act be voluntary and not act by the necessity of nature. The divine scripture also teaches us this truth, for it is said in the Psalm, "All that the Lord willed he did," and Ephesians 1:11, "who works all things according to the purpose of his will." And Hilary, in the Book of the Synods, "The will of God brought substance to all creatures, and below, for all things were created as God willed them to be." By these things the error of certain philosophers who said that God acts by the necessity of nature is removed.